The first question is, when you read this book, what world does Micah pull you into? What makes the story more than just about football? How does it feel to see what life was like behind the scenes at Manchester City during his era? What's one lesson or moment that would hit home for anyone chasing a dream on or off the pitch? What side of Micah Richards does this book reveal that fans never saw on TV or the pitch? Welcome to Cozy Lab. Today we're in the book room reviewing this book by Micah Richards. So, how did I come across Micah to begin with? Okay, to be honest, via social media. I think we've all seen these young, jabs that he receives from his fellow cast members on CBS. CBS is basically a TV station that broadcasts UEFA Champions League matches, and Micah is one of the guests there. So like I said, I came across him because, I love football, I love watching the Champions League, and, sometimes I do this post analysis and stuff like that, and that's how I basically came to know him. I mean, he's a witty guy, he's funny, he's relatable, he's just, just loves to smile, just like you see him here. So I was like, okay, this guy seems like he's a genuine guy. Started to do a bit of more research on him, like on YouTube and stuff like that. And, I got to know his story. And I was like, okay, this is a story. He was an ex-professional footballer who got he had to end his career because of injuries, that kept on putting him out of the game and stuff like that. And then, he got his opportunity to be a pundit. So I was like, I want to know more about his story, because it seems like it's a story that not a lot of people speak about. So that's why, honestly speaking, I bought this book, So I recently finished reading this book and I was like, you know what? We can basically get to answer some few questions. Well, I'll answer some few questions. And then, we'll get to know more about this book. And I honestly think you should buy it, to be honest. But yeah, let's start with the questions and then we'll see how, how I'll hopefully pull you into buying this book, to be honest. And you don't really need to be like a footballer to buy this book. You can even buy this book and read it as a fan, So yeah, we have some questions that are basically going to be answering. Then hopefully you decide to buy this book. I have no affiliation to who he is, or I just literally just like the book, to be honest. So let's dive into the questions. The first question is, when you read this book, what world does Micah pull you into? Okay, so basically he pulls me into this world, this universe of how the game operates and works as a player, So I think that world is different from the world that normally I see it as a fan, someone that just basically I love football and I just want my team to win, and like regardless of what's happening behind the scenes, like, just score goals and win. That's it. But the world that I'm basically put into by Micah is this world of saying, you know what, you are now a player. This is how you see things as a player. This is how things operate as a player. From the things that you might not know as a fan, there's another world behind that. There's behind the scenes behind that of how things actually work behind the scenes. So I feel like that world basically is powerful because then you see things through different lenses. You're more understanding of what the players actually go through. You're more understanding of how, there's some things that happen that are out of control as a footballer, but that affect you. So I think that was really, really important for me to also understand, that okay, there's another world that we may not know, as fans, as people just watching, So I think that was one of the world that he pulled me into, as a player. And it made me feel like, hey, you know what, maybe I'm the one that signed the contract, not him. Okay. The second question, what makes the story more than just about football? I think it's when he becomes a bit more vulnerable, when he speaks about his struggles with injuries. He was this kid, as he always says, that burst onto the scene, that burst onto the scenes, And then from there on, one would have assumed that, this guy is the limit, and then he has these niggly injuries, specifically to his knees, and fluid has to be drained out of his knee so that he could just play now and then, and he's fighting to continuously play, and how that affects you, when you burst onto the scene, and then all of a sudden you cannot move the way you were moving because, of the injuries, because of all these things that you need to do in order for you to play. And I think that just basically humanized him, It stripped down all this thing of just saying, you know what, we see you on TV. We see you on TV, you are this person that's known for going out, for example, all these cars and stuff like that, just spend on this, on that, on that. I think it just made it a bit more human to be like, you know what, at the end of the day, this guy actually has emotions. And there were stages and periods of his life whereby, just like me and you, he went through some things that, you don't want to all of a sudden like speak about them then and then. But yeah, I think it did affect him. But I think yeah, that's what makes this book more than just like, a football book, is how he makes people understand that there's also like another emotional side to football that's just beyond playing. He made it relatable to many things that actually me and you, for example, might go through. Okay, cool. This question is a little bit quick, pa, 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 and then you buy the book and you read it, I hope. Okay, then the third question. How does it feel to see what life was like behind the scenes at Manchester City during his era? This is really interesting. This part is really, really, it's really, really interesting. Okay, cool. So he says, right, in his book, I'm just paraphrasing here, all right, that in football, just like, for example, in school, there's a hierarchy, right? The star players, the middle players, and then the just players that are just there, right? And he made this correlation of how the higher a footballer earns, right, the more respected he is, because that means you're getting paid a lot of money because you're good, essentially, right? And that hierarchy basically, it determined whether I wouldn't say respected, but it determined how you were seen. Even in the locker room, it determines how, the amount of power you have when it comes to like speaking out, for example. Even when they play the rondo, he says there's a time whereby he was in the England squad, right? And then he's playing the rondo, and he says, man, if the first few touches that you have are bad, it almost seems like everyone's like, okay, he's just another one. Yeah, he'll be gone soon. Let him just finish his training today, and then yeah, he's gone. So that perspective of seeing how things worked, behind the scenes, in the dressing room, in the locker rooms, that was pretty interesting, because I think like, it's like a friend group. That, for example, there's certain friends who are like there, others in the middle, and then I just like, just like I said at the beginning, like in school as well. So I think that perspective was really interesting. Him saying that, hey man, in the locker room, the players that just basically when they speak, you just listen. He doesn't need to be wearing the captain announcement for you to understand, but because you know that this guy delivers when he's needed, respect is automatically given to him, more or less. Which is like, oh, okay, that's how it operates. That's how it operates. So, then the fourth question will be, what's one lesson or moment that would hit home for anyone chasing a dream on or off the pitch? What's one lesson that would hit home? I think embracing the unknown. Yeah, I would have to say embracing the unknown. Because like I said, he started off as this kid that burst into the scenes. He had high expectations not only for himself, but the people around him also had high expectations. So I think also just being prepared that, what, this moment right here might not last forever. And I think accepting that in advance actually saves you a lot of like emotional trauma, to be honest. It saves you a lot of like, emotional things that you might have to end up, having to deal with at the end, because you envision this perfect life that everything is going to be perfect and nothing can absolutely go wrong. So I think that's what basically hit home. I think if there's one thing that, yeah, I would say that you must be prepared for the unknown, and you must be able to also embrace it and accept it, well, so that you don't end up putting yourself in a place of, yeah, man, of like having anxiety, being depressed, and then questioning a lot of things. But that change is inevitable, and yeah, you just have to be ready for change. I think that's it. That actually hits home. And then it says here, the fifth question now. What side of Micah Richards does this book reveal that fans never saw on TV or the pitch? Fans. That he's aware of what he's doing. Yeah, that he's aware of what he's doing. Even financially, I know, he was the time he was spending lavishly and stuff like that. And even on camera, he comes across very funny, like, like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, hey, how did he get here? But I would say he's actually an intelligent guy. He's actually an intelligent guy. And especially towards the later end of his career, he made calculative moves, especially with his investment and stuff like that. I think he has spoken a little bit about that, but in the book, you get to understand that even a bit better. That he was aware of all the things that were happening with his injuries. He was not blindsided. And when he began to, slowly accept the reality of what was happening, he made some investments. So yeah, I think he's actually an intelligent guy, to be honest. He's actually an intelligent guy. He knows what he's doing. He acknowledges certain things. For example, in the book, he speaks about how when he got into the space of being a pundit, right, he knew that he couldn't just be as serious, for example, as Roy Keane and just like break everything down, but he had to bring in his persona. So what he does is really, it's an intentional thing. It's not because maybe like, again, he's blindsided by all the cameras and stuff like that. No. He knows what he's doing. He puts himself in that character. He knows what he's doing. Him being the funny guy, him being the guy that just, he's a bit chilled, funny, witty. He does that intentionally, and also because that also aligns with his personality. But behind the scenes, he's actually an intelligent guy, makes calculated moves. So I think that's something, to be honest. That's it. That's it right there. And then number 6. How does this story challenge what people think they know about success in football? I think I need to repeat that question. How does this story challenge what people think they know about success in football? Again, that there's some things that happen that are beyond your control as a footballer. I'll give an example. So he speaks about how there was a time where he couldn't make it to the squad anymore, and there were, when a team play, for example, right? Certain players, say 2 captains, for example, the captain, the vice captain, they end up like choosing players, right? Like, I want this player. Maybe like coach is like, hey, the last 10 minutes, chance, just like play a young, 7v7, 8v8, 10v10 type of situation. And he speaks about how he was second from last. He was second from last when he was chosen second from last. And you can imagine again the burst onto the scenes guy to being picked second from last in training, a whole England international. I mean that. So I think it challenges the things of just saying everything is perfect in football. As if once you've made it into football, that's it. You are set for life, kind of vibe. Like the sky is the limit type of situation. But it also makes you realize that there's certain times where things can go downhill. And it might not be in your control, but it happens. And when it does happen, you basically have to accept. So yeah, he delves a bit deeper into that as well in the book. Number 7. If someone's never watched a single Premier League game, why should they read this book? That's a good one. Why should they read this book? Okay. Because I think it's relatable. I think it's relatable, In any industry, you work hard, you aspire to be someone. Maybe you're a musician, maybe you're a producer, you aspire to be great at what you do. But then again, you come across all these challenges and you're like, is this normal? I never knew things were like this. So I think it's relatable, You can relate to this book even if you don't watch football. You can relate to the challenges that he goes through as an individual. You can relate to how you can potentially solve those problems, So I think it's a very relatable book, Even if you're a business guy and you're trying to run a business, I think it's relatable to you too as well, because then there are these emotional things that you need to overcome, these emotions that you need to conquer, these emotions that you also need to accept, So I think it speaks to that main part. So I think that's probably why you should, read the book if you've never watched any Premier League team. I feel like at this point I'm trying to advertise this book, of which, believe you me, I am not. But honestly, this is a good book. Like, honestly, this book it's really that good. So I don't know. I can't stop thinking about it in that manner, right? So, okay. And then, number 8. What does this story say about growing up, identity, and staying true when the world changes around you? That's actually another good one. Okay. So he speaks about in the book how when all these injuries were happening, right, he basically couldn't play as he would have loved anymore, because he was constantly injured. And then, when you're a footballer and you're injured, honestly speaking, there's nothing that you can do, except to focus on your recovery. So he speaks about how in that moment, he didn't only feel like he had let himself down, but he felt like he had let his community down. And by his community is the environment that he grew up in. Obviously, as a black man, also, he felt like he had let the black community down, And I think that was actually, it was touching, man, because it was just like, he's not only playing for himself, but then when you play and you grow up in a specific area, you're associated with that area. So they're like, oh, there's the kid from London, there's the kid from New York type of situation. You basically represent the place where you grew up in. You basically represent the place where you spend all your life in. And some of these places basically are not known. They are not like, famous places where you know that like a lot of kids, can come up there and their stories can also be heard. So I think that was it about identity, especially the identity part. How he felt like, what, I can't play anymore. I've let down the people that believed in me. I've let down the community. The kids that are in my area. What are they gonna feel? What are they gonna see? So I think also that, yeah, man, that was honestly touching, to be honest. But yeah, that's what I would have to say. And then number 9, right? If this book had a soundtrack, what mood would it play in the background? What mood would I play in the background? What mood would be playing in the background of this? Okay. Like the orchestra vibe, whereby everything is just like, and then like it has this low moment, and then it goes again. Yeah, because I think like the book takes you through those moments whereby, he's doing so well. He starts off low, like, nobody's noticing him. Is this kid, but he's known for his pace. He's known for his things. And then from there, boom, he goes to city, and then the tempo goes like, boom, 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 type of situation. And then he has these injuries, and it's like, it's like the build up starts like, doom, 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 doom. And then, and then when he's beginning to play again, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, type of, I think you get the point. So I think, yeah, it's like a roller coaster, So I think like, an orchestra type of vibe, cinematic vibe. Yeah, I think that'll be it. That'll be the sound. That'll be the sound. And then the last question. When the last page is turned, what stays with the reader? What stays with what? The last. What stayed with me after the last page? A lot of things actually stayed with me, but I actually have to say that football is not what I think it is. Again, I'm just saying this purely because I'm watching it as a fan. But there are deeper things that actually happen in football than one is not aware of. And I know I keep on like saying the same thing, but it's like, honestly, to be honest with you, like that's how eye-opening that was for me. So when I closed the last page, I was just like, this perspective is different. And you've heard players say this like on interviews and stuff like that. But when you actually read the book and it's like text for text, you can almost feel as if like, almost feels as if he's speaking through the book and is expressing himself through the book. That, hey, there's another side to football. There's another side, guys. And I hope you're paying attention, even though that's hard to understand, but there's another side. And I think that's what stood with me. Like after I closed the last page, I was like, man, football is not what I thought it was. It's this beautiful game, but it's this beautiful game that also has behind the scenes things happening that I might not be aware of. So yeah, I think that'll be it. So those are the 10 questions about reading this book. Yeah, man, I actually love reading this book, man. And I hope that, by watching this, you get encouraged to actually read this book. Like I said, I don't have any affiliates with this book. There's no affiliate link that I'm going to leave in the description below, but I just genuinely just love reading the book, and I hope that you actually, end up buying the book as well. And if you do, or you were planning on buying the book, I suggest that you also comment in the section what you liked about the book, maybe also what you didn't like about the book. And if you do read the book, please do tag me. I think I'd actually appreciate it, to be honest, because be like, you should read the book. So yeah, that was it. Micah Richards, the game. Yeah, it's all about the game. The best thing Micah's done since he burst onto the scene many years ago. That was a quote by Provoking. Yeah, man. So that was basically the first book that we basically reviewed. I'm looking forward to reviewing many more books with you guys. And yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be only about football, but again, I say this room is spread across all type of books, man. Financial books, self-help books, productivity books, yeah, even spiritual books as well. So yeah, that was me for today. Thank you guys for staying. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the book, man. If you ever get to read it, what other books would you also love me to read, so that I can look into that as well, and hopefully I can read them, or I can put them in a list of books that I am going to read, and I'm going to come back and be like, hey, I should read the book that you suggested I read. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed.